The story continues back in Soara. Here, our boy Vlad talks about how his face doesn't need something. However, the beast girl insists, taking the tip of her tail with red paint on it. She tells him that his face is unguarded, claiming that the imprint on her tail will give him cold resistance. As such, she keeps trying to convince him that he should let her use it on him. Despite all her attempts to make him agree, he just finds it really strange that she's the only one trying to use the paint on him. As far as he's concerned, there's no need for it since everyone else has their face uncovered. In response, she simply informs him that he's the one who needs the imprint because he's definitely going to be on the field for the longest. As soon as she said this, one of the other knights chimes in, joking about how Vlad is the Bayezid family's best dragon repeller. They seriously revere Vlad, and after witnessing how he handled the deathworm back in the wilderness, they encourage him to just run wild once again and do his thing. At this point, our boy realizes that everyone is on the same page, and since they all think that he needs to have the paint mark on his face as some kind of protection, he finally gives in and allows her to imprint his face. Without any hesitation, the beast girl turns to Picasso with the red paint and draws the symbol of protection on his face using her tail. Apparently, it's no ordinary paint because right after she uses it on him, the mark vanishes, almost like some magical seal on his body. Vlad just sits there, feeling indifferent about the whole thing, and the young lady just reminds him that he must avoid the dragon's breath attack because the imprint isn't exactly invulnerable. Sure, it's supposed to protect him, but that doesn't mean that he should just expose himself to the flames from the dragon. Thankfully, our boy understands this very well, so he acknowledges the advice, and the beast girl informs him that she'll also be imprinting the horse with the mark of protection. Vlad is totally fine with this since he wouldn't want his horse to be vulnerable to attacks either, but he just warns the girl to be careful not to let the son of the grasslands bite her since the black stallion is notorious for its attitude. Apparently, she doesn't know how mean the horse can be, so she shrugs off his warning, feeling that there's no way she can get bit since she's not dealing with a dog or something. Seeing how clueless she is, Vlad casually informs her that the horse actually does bite people, revealing that Goth was trying to put on the saddle when he got bitten. Just then, Sir Lamman comes out and asks the blonde swordsman if he's done with his preparation. He turns to the old man and confirms that he's ready, so the veteran informs him that the scouts have returned, stating that the Lindworm thereafter has finally taken the bait laid out by the dragon killer knights, and because of this, the situation has become quite complicated. Sir Lamman reveals that AJ is willing to testify that the slaughter of his tribe wasn't done by the Northerners, but even at that, the tension between them and the barbarians will last for a while still. Whatever the case, the old man still believes that they can only do their best right now, and on this note, he asks Vlad if he has the details regarding the mission. Heeding this, a mischievous smile creeps up on our boy's face, and then he claims that his intel is nothing tough. Apparently, he just needs to drive the Lindblum to the designated location to set everything in motion. The old man likes the plan immediately, stating that if Vlad can drive the dragon to the northern canyon, then Rudiger, who must be lying in ambush there, will be able to run out and finish the job. At the same time, the javelin of the Duke Volkov Baranov will probably fly in there as well to make sure the Lindworm is absolutely helpless. After concluding on this plan, the old man asks our boy if he has any further questions, and of course, our battle-ready swordsman doesn't have any. He's locked in right now and ready to go after the white dragon, but the veteran still wants him to ask something at least. After all, Vlad is the core of the strategy, so he needs to work perfectly in sync with the rest of them and make sure that he follows the plan. Sir Lamman reminds him that this mission isn't just a dragon hunt, and this statement catches him off guard because that's exactly what he thought they were doing. He expresses his confusion immediately, so the old knight informs him that the future of the North depends on this subjugation. He explains that the unseen war between the North and the Central has already begun, and so he wants Vlad to understand the gravity of the situation at hand. Sir Lamman elaborates on the war they're faced with Baranov in the northeast and Bayezid in the northwest. These two households are known as the supporting pillars of the North. The next generations of these households are going to participate in this subjugation. On top of that, the Dragon Blood Duke will also be in the picture. Sir Lamman believes that their presence alone could pose a threat to the Empire because it's an extraordinary event for the leaders of the three households to be gathered in one place. Even though this looks like how things will play out right now. But then again, if the two households work together and still fail the dragon's remnant, while the dragon killer knights slay it, the Central will use the dragon as an excuse to tear apart the North. As such, the veteran reminds Vlad why the Lindblum must be killed by the Sword of the North. At this point, our boy begins to understand the gravity of the mission and why it's not just a dragon hunting exercise that can be gambled with. He now understands that the only way they will be able to rescue AJ's tribe held captive by the Central is if they're the ones who kill the dragon. This little chat suddenly comes to an end when both swordsmen are alerted by Sir Rudiger's arrival. The leader of the party comes out and asks his vanguard if they are ready to set out, to which they all say that they are. Seeing that his men are all ready for battle, Sir Rudiger informs them that they'll meet at the canyon, which they acknowledge and set out immediately. They all mount their horses and ride out, but among all the knights in the line, his focus is on one particular blondie mount on the back of a spectacular black stallion. It turns out he's not the only one watching Vlad, because just then, His partner interrupts his thoughts, asking him if he really thinks that the boy from Soara will be able to do well on the battlefield. Sir Volkanov has his doubts because he feels that Vlad is really young and may not be able to keep up when things get tough, but Sir Rudiger tells him that there's no need to worry and assures him that Vlad is his best pick. He admits that the blondie might not look like it on the outside, but reveals that this is the same kid that lured out the death worm that stayed underground. Volkanov is taken aback when he hears this because he never would have imagined that someone that young would be capable of such a feat. He probably isn't familiar with Vlad's reputation yet, but since Rudiger already knows exactly what our boy is capable of, he continues to praise him and even tells his new partner how the young genius managed that feat back when he couldn't even ride a horse. The red-eyed master is really blown away after hearing this story, and admits that it's even absurd to think that something like that is possible. However, Sir Rudiger simply informs him that it's just who Vlad is because he's always doing unexpected things. This little eye-opener leaves Sir Volkanov deep in thought. He can't wrap his head around it, but he also knows that one's age doesn't say everything about them. Rather, it's their experience and skills that speak for them. Everything they've accumulated up until now will determine the mission's success. In this generation of the Bayezid household, Sir Volkov Baranov is really taken aback by what he's learned so far because he thought that he was the only one worth paying attention to. However, now he realizes that there was one more person quietly making waves and gradually growing into a legend. The scene changes after a while and we see that the party is already back out in the snowy mountains. They navigate their way and based on the information from their scouts and the barbarian prisoners, they're able to pinpoint a location where they believe the Lindworm should be. At the moment, they're convinced that it's just right ahead and they also feel that it is in a berserk state. Judging by what they're seeing around, they conclude that the dragon has been on a rampage because it destroyed its own territory, and now it's heading south, ignoring its original behavior of following the cold. One of the knights suggests that the Lindworm is acting as if it has an objective, which makes them suspect that the dragon might have gained intelligence. Of course, the knight can't be sure about this, but it's clear that the creature is acting differently. Usually, a dragon's remnant would simply have basic instincts, like those of beasts, but if they think they're a dragon, as the mages have said, then it's possible that it's gained intelligence. At this point, the suggestion starts to make a lot of sense because the last time, even the death worm only went after the pilgrims. As such, it's starting to look like the dragon's remnants think that they're a dragon. Just then, they see footprints leading somewhere and they conclude that they're at the right place. They're glad that it snowed the previous night because now only the Lindworm's prints are visible, which also means that it was there not too long ago. Without even thinking twice, they decide to follow the tracks quickly, determined to catch up with the Lindworm and finish the mission. The party travels along the snowy mountain for a long time, following the tracks till the sun starts setting behind them. Vlad is at the back of the line for some reason and then all of a sudden, he looks back and starts to have a strange feeling. He recalls how they said that the Lindworm is heading south and ignoring its usual behavior, but for some reason, the tracks are slowly heading north. It doesn't really add up for our boy because the tracks are leading them into the forest where mobility is limited for the Lindworm. He's still trying to figure out what exactly the creature is up to when it appears to ambush them. As soon as he sees the Lindworm, he curses and alerts everyone else, telling them that it's a trap. The insanely fast creature roars at him with murderous intent, so he warns the rest of the group to spread out immediately. As you can imagine, the Lindworm isn't going to sit there and wait for all the threats to disperse, so it charges at them before they can even realize what's going on. The other knights hear Vlad's warning, but before they can even process it, the white dragon closes in on the young swordsman to finish him off. Thankfully, our boy manages to block the attack, and the force from the strike pushes him and his horse a few feet away. At this point, the other soldiers are fully alert and aware of the danger, so they light their torches and charge at the monster. Sir Rudiger orders his men to charge and surround the Lindworm, which they do without hesitation. As such, it only takes a few seconds for them to contain the beast in a circle of fire. For a split second, the Lindworm looks vulnerable and confused. But just as they initially suspected, this creature has developed intelligence, so it quickly looks for a weak spot in the barrier and prepares to take advantage of it. All of a sudden, the Lindworm starts charging up a breath attack, determined to escape, so when the soldiers see this, their first thought is to spread out and avoid getting hit by the devastating flames. While they're still trying to break the circle and dodge the blast, the white beast opens its mouth and unleashes the lethal blue flames. As the powerful beast unleashes its blue flames, one would think that the soldiers are about to be fried to crisps, but it turns out that this dragon isn't exactly the type to unleash fire from its mouth because its first attack leaves the victims frozen on their horses rather than being burnt up to charcoal. The remaining soldiers see the fate that their comrades just suffered, so they charge at the beast to avenge them. Before the others can even get to the Lindworm, the head knight blasts himself out from behind and unleashes a powerful shot on the dragon. The strike makes contact with the Lindworm, of course, but the other soldiers are horrified when they see that the hit didn't even leave a scratch on the monster. They were just charging it with only their swords. While they're still in that shaken state, the head knight yells at them to get away from the beast and then tries to save them from its attack, but they're not fast enough, so it pounces on them and quickly turns them into bloody pieces of flesh. As the Lindworm viciously devours them, the knight curses in anger and prepares to avenge them. His eye begins to glow as he activates his magical abilities, and with the lot torch high above his head, he's able to get the creature's attention. Right now, this white monster hates the sight of those flames, so it desperately wants to rip the knight apart for even having the torch with him. This is all part of his plan anyway, since he intends to lure the Lindworm away from the others for now. He informs his comrades that he'll lead in the front and orders the rest to maintain their distance while running after the beast. Right after saying this, he blazes off on his horse with the torch brightly burning above the head, forcing the Lindworm to follow him. The dragon bolts after him, determined to rip him apart while the other knights give chase as well, but make sure to keep their distance. They light their torches as well while staying right behind the Lindbloom. But the creature is smart enough to know that they're following it, so it quickly figures out a way to detail them. Once the knights get a little closer, the dragon uses its tail to raise the snow behind in order to destabilize the soldiers following it on horseback. While trying to shake off those at the back, this vicious monster also manages to pick up the pace and close in on the head knight in front. The guy doesn't see it coming, and by the time he realizes that the Lindworm is right behind him, it's almost too late. The beast opens its mouth and once again behind to charge up another breath blast. The guy in front sees this, so he warns everyone else to spread out immediately to avoid getting hit again. The beast turns around in the blink of an eye, and while the pursuers are still trying to get their horses to move out of the way, the Lindworm unleashes another powerful blast of blue ice flames at them. This time around, they're not able to dodge it because the sneaky creature uses its breath attack on the ground, which freezes most of their horses to the ground. Of course, not every one of them ends up falling for such a mediocre attack, since there are some extremely talented swordsmen in the fray. As you can imagine, we're talking about Vlad, who casually gets his horse to leap off the ground and all the areas that were affected by the ice blast. As a result, he doesn't get stuck, so he manages to remain in the chase, but he looks back to see the damage suffered by the rest of the party. Sure, he didn't get caught by the breath attack, but he didn't expect that the Lindbloom would go after the horses. Because of this, most of his men are stuck in the middle of extremely sharp ice spines that could rip the horses' bellies if they attempt to move further. At this point, they can tell that their plan has failed, so the head knight tells everyone else to get off their horses. The Lindworm has proven way too difficult to contain, so he feels that the only way to slow it down would be by cutting off at least one of its legs. Unfortunately, that's going to be a lot harder now that they no longer have the advantage of their horses. They're all forced to fight on foot, but this doesn't deter them, so they draw their swords and advance toward the beast. The Lindworm can tell that they've suffered a big blow by no longer having their horses, so it doesn't even bother running anymore. At the moment, it probably sees all of them as potential meals, so it faces them and waits for them to approach. Even though the head knight told them to focus on crippling the beast, he also knows that it's not going to be easy. In fact, he's not even sure they can do that considering how swift and vicious the Lindworm is, but he can't tell his men such a thing. He has to remain brave and encourage them to fight. At the moment, the beast is ready to take them all on, which makes their task even more difficult because it's not even showing any sign of fear anymore. As they get closer, it roars at them to scare them off and almost charges at the head knight, but just when it looks like he's about to be devoured, a splash of blood from elsewhere catches the creature's attention. Vlad yells at the beast and then reveals his slit palm with blood dripping down from it. Apparently, he split his own hand just to get the monster's attention, and now that he's gotten it, he taunts the Lindbloom to come get the blood it's been craving so badly. Sure enough, this little plot to lure the white dragon works perfectly because the monster is extremely thirsty for Vlad's blood for some reason. As it zooms in on his injured palm, it sees the drops of blood fall down to the snow, and in a split second, its eyes literally turn red. With the next drop that hits the floor, the Lindworm goes absolutely berserk. It's never looked this crazy and bloodthirsty since they started chasing it, with which confirms that there's definitely something special in our boy's blood. Seeing how insane and desperate the creature looks all of a sudden, Vlad just smiles confidently, amused by how effective that little trick was. He's not even fazed by the crazy look in the Lindbloom's eyes, probably because he feels he can defeat it. But the voice in his head is pretty worried about him. The beast has never looked this dangerous before, so there's no telling what it's capable of in this berserk state. The voice tells him that he shouldn't have done that to attract it, and we immediately get to see just why. In the blink of an eye, the dragon charges at our boy and almost reaches him on the cliff with one leap. Thankfully, his horse is swift enough to evade this first attack, and so he begins to create some distance between himself and the Lindworm. Of course, the bloodthirsty creature doesn't stop there, so it pursues him, and that's when the head knight calls out to our boy. He tosses the flaming torch to Vlad, who catches it with ease, and then he yells at the blondie to run for his life. Without even thinking about it, our boy jets off on his horse with the Lindbloom right behind him. The monster locks in on him and uses all its energy to chase him, so of course, Vlad channels the energy inside him and syncs with his horse to enable them move even faster. The horse's eyes begin to glow along with the horn that suddenly appears, confirming that they're both now in an entirely different mode too. If you remember, the initial plan was to lure the white dragon to the canyon where Sir Rudiger will be waiting with his own soldiers to catch the Lindbloom off guard. So far, that plan is working perfectly since the beast is desperately going after our boy. Meanwhile, at the canyon, Rudiger and Baranov are waiting for the beast to fall into their trap. Sure enough, it doesn't take too long for one of the soldiers to spot Vald coming from afar. Volkov Baranov asks the guy how long it will take for them to reach the canyon, and the soldier estimates that it would take about 5 minutes. At first, that's how long he feels it would take, but then after taking a second look, he realizes that Vlad is moving at mind-blowing speed, faster than anything he's ever seen. With each second that passes, our boy and his horse cover so much ground that the estimated time keeps dropping rapidly until they're just a few meters away. Baranov can't even believe his eyes when he sees how fast the son of the grasslands is traveling. He's never seen anything on 4 legs move that fast, so he's in a daze for a moment, but he snaps out of it when the soldier informs him that the young swordsman is right in front of them. Because of how insanely fast our boy was, Baranov miscalculated, so he wasn't able to fire the signal in time. Anyway, now that Vlad is here, he quickly orders his men to fire the signal. Without wasting a second, the soldier shoots the arrow to fire the signal, which our boy recognizes instantly. Because of this, he realizes that they'll be at the canyon very soon. It's a relief to him because at least he knows that Sir Rudiger and his world are there to help him out when the bloodthirsty dragon finally catches up with him. Right now, they're on the home straight and they just have to keep up this pace to reach the canyon safely. Unfortunately, that's when things start to go south because all of a sudden, our boy suffers a stinging pain inside his chest. It's like a bolt of lightning strikes him at that moment, and even the horse suffers the same grueling pain. The voice in his head has no idea what just happened, so it tries to figure out what is going on. However, Vlad is in way too much pain, so he can't even talk. All he can do is think about the excruciating pain he's feeling in his chest as if something is squeezing his heart. At this point, the voice realizes that this must be a binding spell despite how shocking and unbelievable that may seem. Vlad is so confused by this, so he wonders who cast the spell. He thinks deeply as the force squeezes even harder on his heart, and that's when the face of the culprit appears in his mind. It's none other than the blood fucker from earlier, and when it becomes clear what is going on, all Vlad can do is groan in pain as the binding spell puts him right where the dragon wants him. Sir Rudiger is so confused when he sees that Vlad and his horse stopped all of a sudden. He was already waiting there with his sword, ready to finish the Lindworm off, but now, it's looking like the dragon remnant will be the one to finish off his favorite young knight. Right now, it's starting to look like it's over for our boy because he can barely even move, much less defend himself against the bloodthirsty berserker that's only a few inches away from him. One would think this is where Vlad's story finally ends, but that's when something crazy happens. In a shocking turn of events, the Lindbloom begins stepping back rather than pouncing on the young blondie. Apparently, the creature must have sensed something off and decided to retreat. Rudiger notices this and immediately alerts his men, urging them to march forward and attack the beast. They've already sacrificed so much to lure the Lindworm this far, so they can't let it escape now. He orders the knights to go forward and finish off the dragon, which they all do in a heartbeat. Out of all the soldiers, Sir Lamman takes the lead and swoops into action while Rudiger tells them to surround the beast densely so that they can push it into the canyon. On the other side, he's heading out with his troops to make sure that they cover all exit points and make sure they don't give it any openings. Just like that, the Lindworm finds itself surrounded from all angles in the blink of an eye. However, it's fast enough to spot an exit route, so it turns around and attempts to escape. For now, that's the only place it can pass to get away, but escaping won't be that easy since Rudiger urges Volkov to handle it. The ponytailed warrior is the closest to the Lindworm, so he tells the others to leave the creature to him. Apparently, he's not even bluffing because before the dragon knows what's happening, he unleashes a powerful blast that disorients it for a while. This gives him enough time to unleash more blasts on the beast back to back. Every single strike makes contact with the Lindworm, and the explosions create clouds of smoke and ice all over the place. For a while, the soldiers can't even tell if they got the creature down finally, but then as the smoke clears, a pair of rage-filled red eyes glare at them, followed by a supercharged breath blast that they don't see coming early enough. Sir Lamman sees the dragon preparing to unleash the blast, so once again, he warns all those in its path to spread out. Most of the knights manage to get out of the way and avoid getting hit, but it quickly becomes clear that they weren't even the target because all of a sudden, they see the breath attack headed right for Vlad and horse, who are still incapacitated from the binding spell. Our boy is still struggling to move and fighting with the pain in his heart, but now he has to get out of the way because he's about to be hit with the deadly breath attack of the Lindworm. The voice in his head urges him to come to his senses and do something, but all he can do right now is groan in agony. Just then, we see Sir Lamman riding over to him to help him out. As far as this old man is concerned, if not the best, then the second best must be chosen. And as such, the virtue of the retired knight was a chance to take responsibility for the future. With this in mind, Sir Lamman blasted himself ahead of the breath attack and got in the way to save Vlad. The old man takes the full force of that supercharged breath attack, and in that heroic moment, the other soldiers watch silently as their hearts shatter to pieces. Even while suffering such a lethal blow, the old geezer still manages to lighten up the mood, joking about how the cold wind goes all the way into the joints once you get old. He bears the full brunt of the attack to make sure that our boy stays alive while the others watch in silence as the old knight goes down. The blast sends snow flying all over the place, and as the voice continues to wake Vlad up, the young swordsman gradually regains consciousness. The breath blast causes the earth beneath him to freeze up, and so he begins to feel the chill entering his body and entangling him like a spider web, making it impossible for him to move. For most soldiers, this would be the moment when they finally accept their fates and surrender to the forces, and our boy begins to recall how he was able to drag himself out of that horrific bog of the back alley. He managed to make it out of there, and yet he can't escape this soft snowfield. The young knight begins to lose his will to fight all of a sudden. Everything becomes blurry to him, and even the sound of the voice in his head calling to him starts to fade out. Just when it looks like he might be closing his eyes for the last time, he begins to feel great warmth in his hands. He's confused at first, but then realizes that this warmth is actually the old knight's world. The voice reveals this to him, urging him to get it together before informing him that the world which Sir Lamman built up throughout his lifetime is what just reached his horizon. In other words, the old geezer sacrificed himself so that he can give Vlad the power he needs to break the spell. For this reason, the voice urges the young swordsman to sever the bind immediately and let nothing hold him back anymore. Thanks to Sir Lamman's world, the warmth gives our boy the power to move again, so he draws his sword with all the energy he can muster, and as his eyes begin to glow with power, he takes the big determined swing to break the binding spell and free himself for good. With this powerful swing, our boy is able to free himself, and as he does this, you can literally see the remnants of the spell flowing off the sword. Using this newfound power in him that Sir Lamman granted him, our boy is not only able to break the spell, but he also manages to send a serious message back to the caster. He lifts his sword up to concentrate all the dark energy of the binding spell, and with Sir Lamman's blade buried into the ground, a backfire mechanism is triggered to strike the blonde fucker who cast the spell on him in the first place. This manifests as a powerful sting that causes the evil mage to bleed from his eye. It's not the worst pain he could suffer, but he is impressed by Vlad's will and ability to fight back. He admits that the boy from Soara is good and just continues to watch everything happening on the battlefield. Now that our boy has broken free, he turns to Sir Lamman, realizing that the veteran saved him. He calls out to the old knight, who is still crouched down to the ground on his knees, but Sir Lamman tells him to go on ahead, claiming that he's done his duty, and that it's Vlad's turn now. The young swordsman is a little thrown off by this statement, even though he probably already knows what it means. While he's still trying to have this moment with the old knight, he suddenly senses the Lindworm trying to unleash another breath blast on him. By the time he turns around, the blast has already consumed a few of his comrades, and as much as he'd like to finish talking to Sir Lamman, he's forced to run for his life and avoid getting struck by the blast. As for the old knight, he just remains there and waits for the second wave of the breath attack to hit him again. The chill consumes him and he freezes up in a matter of seconds from the inside out down to his cape. Sir Rudiger watches the onslaught of his men from a nearby cliff, feeling relieved that they all have the engraving, which means that they'll be able to resist the chill. However, he admits that it will be difficult for them to move at the moment. He knows that everyone down there will be caught up in it if he unfolds his world right now, so he can't risk it for their own safety. The man is really frustrated right now because their plan is about to fail woefully. He doesn't know what to do and begins to wonder if they're really going to fail due to the difference of just a single step. The leader doesn't know how to help his soldiers, and all he can do is watch as the breath attack covers the entire canyon like a truck fog. Just then, he spots a familiar glow within the snow, and it turns out to be Vlad, riding on his horse toward the Lindbloom. The voice urges him to pull out every ounce of strength he has as his eyes glow with power and the determination to destroy the monster. He goes in for the kill, and of course, the bloodthirsty dragon speeds toward him as well. They collide viciously with an insane explosion, and as both sides slightly it out, our boy begins to struggle a bit. He feels that it's too hard to fight this beast, but the voice assures him that every swing he takes is still effective, revealing that he managed to make a wound on the bastard's scales. Sure enough, Vlad takes a second look and realizes that he actually did some damage to the Lindbloom. At this point, his momentum increases because it's clear that he has a chance. The voice encourages him even more, telling him that he can't stop now and urges him to keep going. So, he does and continues to land blows on the dragon with his glowing sword. They collide over and over, each strike more vicious than the last. After some time, the hero notices that the Lindworm can no longer keep up, so it becomes clear that his strategy is working. He can see that the Lindworm has slowed down, so he feels he can probably catch it in a vulnerable position very soon, but just when he thinks he's got the upper hand, he notices the nasty crack on his sword. He's been clashing the sword heavily with the dragon's incredibly strong scales, so now it's damaged, and he can't believe his eyes because the sword is like the only thing he can use to hurt the beast. Even though his sword is badly damaged right now, he still feels that he's got a shot because he successfully made the Lindworm bleed. The blue blood drips down from the cracks in the monster's wounds, and even though this is supposed to slow it down, it's still pretty active for an injured creature. The Lindbloom charges at Vlad almost as if it knows that his sword is extremely damaged. Our boy remains on his horse and waits for the monster to make the first move, knowing that he can't make any careless swings anymore. He has to be more careful and strategic with his strikes because the sword could break any moment from now. His hands begin to shake as he braces himself for impact, and it's almost like he's reluctant to use the sword. The voice senses this and becomes worried, but our boy just still manages to land another critical strike which opens up the dragon's body even more. After this strike, the voice questions him about what just happened, asking him why he hesitated before reminding him that he should never stop his sword in the middle of a charge like that. Of course, our boy already knows this, but he also knows that his blade is not exactly in the best shape right now, so he tries to protest. Unfortunately, he can't even get a word in because the Lindworm doesn't give him a chance to even breathe. He finds himself in the middle of another clash merely seconds after his last strike. This berserk dragon is absolutely out for blood at this point and will stop at nothing to make sure that Vlad is dead. Our boy can see this too, since he's been faced with the murderous glares since their clash started, so he knows that he has to be extremely careful and avoid mistakes at all costs. The Lindworm pounces on him from above but gets blasted away before it can reach him thanks to Sir Volkov. This vicious warrior joins the fight with a barrage of blasts that he unleashes on the dragon, assuring Vlad that he'll cover him. The creature is injured and is now also outnumbered, so it turns around to retreat, knowing it can't take Vlad and Volkov together. They see the Lindworm retreating to the plains where they'll have a hard time tracking it down again, so Sir Rudiger calls out to Vlad, telling him to go after the dragon. They've done so much and lost so much in pursuit of this, so he would hate for them to lose it again because that would mean they failed. Almost all the horses are either tired or frozen, and our boy is the only one who can match Lindworm's pace, so Rudiger urges him to go after the beast. Hearing this, a sense of purpose washes over the young knight. He braces himself for the chase, and as he urges his horse to go after the target, the voice talks about how beings that reach their limit have no choice but to stop. It tells him that he would have to stop now because he can't go any further, just like his sword that is on the verge of breaking in two. The voice concludes that he and his sword can't be together forever, but at the same time, it suggests that blade do what it must one last time. Hearing this, our boy is motivated to go after the Lindworm and keep fighting. It's a difficult decision to keep going despite how exhausted he is, but he still musters the last bit of energy and magic in him to infuse in the sword and rides fast to pursue the vicious monster they set out to destroy. The dragon runs away from the canyon, back to the plains with determined strides, not wanting to get caught. This creature is considered the fastest thing on four legs to ever exist, but the people who made this claim probably hadn't ever heard of the son of the grasslands before. Vlad's black horse gives chase and closes the distance between him and the dragon in such a short time. By the time the Lindworm looks back, it's shocked to see that the swordsman is right on its tail. Vlad gets closer by the second until he eventually lands the most deadly strike yet. But he doesn't stop there, because once the creature is forced to slow down, this is the perfect opportunity for him to go all out and unleash a barrage of deadly slashes on it. He chips away at the dragon's scales with each strike, ordering it to stop over and over until he finally lands a mighty strike on one of its hind legs, which sends it tumbling in the snow due to the momentum. The Lindworm is finally brought to a halt, and before it can even catch its breath, another powerful blast from the Blood Duke's eldest son is buried into its body. The creature screeches in agony as it lies there, incapacitated. Volkov reveals that he just used his last spear on the dragon, which means that he can't be of any more assistance. Right now, he's counting on our boy to finish the job, and he makes this very clear. Of course, Vlad is determined to finish the mission and make sure that all their sacrifices weren't for nothing. With his tireless horse still very much active, he charges at the Lindworm with a determined look in his glowing eyes. He knows that everyone is counting on him, and he's more than ready to finish the job, so he rides over to the beast, knowing that he's about to land the last strike he ever will using his current sword. He remembers how he was when he first got the blade and thinks about how it truly is the last time he'll ever use it. In that moment, all his memories with his beloved sword flash across his mind, from the moment where he first got it, to the first time he ever used it to defeat a monster. He remembers his battle against the Deathworm and all the other adventures with the sword that led up to this moment. Our boy recalls everything and simply thanks the blade for helping him get to this point. After making peace with the fact that he'll lose his sword, he locks in once again to finish the Lindworm once and for all. His horse blazes across the snow with intense focus, and the dragon in question just remains in one spot as he advances toward it. Of course, this deadly creature isn't going down without a proper fight. Sure, it might not be able to run anymore, but that doesn't mean it can't still shoot breath blasts from its mouth. That's literally its signature move, so once it realizes that Vlad is coming to end its life, it practically goes into self-destruct mode by charging up its most deadly breath attack yet. You can literally see the blue flames of ice swirling around in its mouth one last time, but this doesn't deter our boy. Vlad has already started his charge, so it doesn't matter what the beast does after. He's determined to slay it for good. He tightens the grip on his sword and infuses the cracked blade with the most magic power so far. He knows that it's the last slash, which means that he has to make it count. Eventually, he lands the devastating strike directly on the dragon's head, and the force from the collision is so much that you'd think it came from a small atomic bomb explosion. Vlad kills the Lindworm with this strike, and this is confirmed by the insane amount of blue blood that splashes all over the place. The others watching from the sidelines have their jaws dropped when they witness this, and another incredible sight is the way the sword shatters as it makes contact with the dragon's body for the last time. This is a big victory for the young swordsman, but it's also a huge loss too, because he knows that this is goodbye to his beloved sword. Even after being broken in half upon impact, the sword was still shining. Sure, it was no longer the up and high night sky, but at least it was held by the boy who wished to shine himself. Who would have thought that the sword of the back alley would also have enough qualifications to become a star? Probably nobody. But finally, the name of the star left behind was the Dragon Slayer sword, which is absolutely a big feat for any blade at all. The remaining half of the sword remains in our boy's hand even after the incredible battle against the Lindworm. As for most of the broken pieces, they remain scattered on the battlefield, while the pointy half that did the job is dug in the snow, covered in the blue blood of the fastest dragon that ever existed, reflecting the corpse of the one and only Lindblum. After the incredible battle, we see that the remaining soldiers have caught up with our boy. They tie the limbs of the massive Lindworm corpse and attack them to their horses with ropes to drag the trophy back home to the north. While all of that is going on, we see a familiar figure sitting alone in the snow. Today, Vlad is the champion, the victor who got the job done. But he's also the young knight who lost the most. He almost lost a mentor and a veteran that had helped shape him into a better knight even though their time together was short. On top of that, he also lost the first sword he'd ever known as a knight, so you can imagine why he's sitting all alone and mourning while the others celebrate their big trophy. His solitude is interrupted when Sir Rudiger comes over to commend him on a job well done. He's shocked at first, but when he realizes that it's Rudiger, he quickly asks if the old Sir is alright. The master is surprised to hear him refer to Sir Lamman as old Sir and wonders if the man still didn't tell Vlad his name. In response, our boy claims that the man did not disclose his name, because he had not completed his duties. At this point, Rudiger just sits next to him and assures him that the old Sir will reveal his name soon enough. That's when he finally talks about the broken sword in our boy's hand. Vlad quickly defends his blade, stating that it did the best it could and the master agrees with him. It's a sad moment for the young blondie, and even though he's not sure it will comfort him, he tells Vlad that he'll get him his next sword. Our boy doesn't respond at first, but then asks Rudiger if he'll be able to find another like this. In response, the master tells him that sharp swords are always bursting at the seams and how countless swords either shine or are too tough. However, he admits that he's not sure he can find a sword that can wholly contain our boy's world. Even for the Emperor, it would be difficult to find a sword that's special, and this just leaves our boy disappointed. Rudiger can see this, so he tells Vlad not to be too sad, reminding him that his old sword can stay by his side forever with the title it left him. Hearing this, the boy is a little confused because he doesn't even know what the title is. The master simply tells him that he can be proud of it because in this generation of Bayezid, only the both of them have the title. He concludes by telling him that his broken sword is the witness of the title itself, and then reveals that it's the title of the Dragon Slayer, Vlad of Soara. Honestly, you just can't help but wonder how our MC has turned out to become such an insane aura farmer. My guy just has the presence of a main character, and it keeps getting heavier with each chapter. As usual, I just can't wait for the next chapters to drop soon, and if you guys feel the same, make sure you're subscribed to stay updated for future uploads. Until next time.